Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
And I'm Pete Wright, average thousandaire husband podcaster.
Today, we're talking about Minute 71, which begins with Team Time Bomb and ends with Clint preparing himself. Back on the show from last week, it's Kyle Olson. Hello, Kyle.
Everything special about me also came out of a bottle.
That should be something that Tony should have some comment with, because, you know, as somebody who had his own demon in a bottle.
In a bottle, yeah.
Okay, so we're starting this minute. Banner's getting angry. He's seeing this the bigger picture here, calling this group this time bomb. Now, Fury is the one who kind of goes to Natasha's side and says, you need to step away. Why? Is this the same thing that he was doing when he responded to Tony, when he was just grasping for straws and just like said is like, well, how'd you make all your money? And is this the same sort of thing? Like, oh, well, you just get mad. You need to step away. Like, is he still grasping at straws and just doesn't know what to say anymore to kind of keep this team together?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there is part of it that just feels like Fury is legitimately concerned about what could possibly happen if Bruce really does get riled up in this conversation. And eventually we see it. Like, it doesn't go well for if you're a helicarrier.
Those of you who are helicarriers who are listening, please be aware of the trigger warning.
Trigger warning. We're going to apologize to all of our helicarrier audience. The views of Pete Wright on helicarriers.
Yes.
I'm not sure about Fury. I guess it's not a huge thing because in the scope of trying to keep the team together, he doesn't want Hulk to Hulk out, or he doesn't want Bruce to Hulk out, because that would be bad and that would make a little bit of mess of things. So I guess I can see why he is kind of making that shift here. But then that leads into Tony's response. Why shouldn't the guy let off a little steam? And this is something we've talked about a number of times with Tony and his reactions, his needling with Bruce. How does all of that play for you in the film, Kyle? We haven't had a chance to talk with you about any of this. I mean, from the time that they first meet each other, they have their little scientist rom-com meet cute. And right after that, Tony starts poking him with electric prods and all sorts of stuff, trying to get him to, maybe show some signs of the green guy.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting that Tony immediately treats him as a science experiment.
Yeah.
Because I also think that Tony has been around a lot of different people, and he doesn't quite know what to make of Bruce Banner, because as knowing him as the person who can get green and destroy everything, to meeting this kind of quiet milquetoast scientist doesn't really make sense. Like, if they're scientists, then why isn't he more like Tony? But he makes weapons, kind of. So he's not like his dad. Like, I don't think the equations don't line up for Tony about what Bruce is like and what he should be. So I think that's what he's just trying to sort of figure him out, trying to rationalize him, trying to like put him into one of the containers.
He's also never seen Hulk, right? Like, he's never seen it beyond the footage, because we saw him looking at the footage even in this movie in New York at the beginning, after they lit him up and he was doing his homework. But he's never seen him, and I do get this feeling that he is just a dash sociopathic enough that he really does genuinely want to see what would happen if, and test a theory, whatever the theory is.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's kind of what we came to, is this idea that he's a person who would rather, make the mistake of releasing Hulk and then sort out the issues afterward than really thinking ahead of things and realizing, it's probably not a good idea to do this at this particular point in time.
Yeah, but we've seen over the time that Tony respects intelligence.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I think he recognizes the kindred spirit. I mean, that's the whole, offering him the berry.
Yes.
That's a big
right.
gesture for Tony Stark. Like, that was a berry of respect.
Yeah.
Well, he does offer one to Steve as well, who doesn't take it. And so maybe that's part of the reason that there still is this animosity between these two characters. And I wonder how that plays for you. Like, why does Tony come into the relationship with Steve immediately in the start of this film, seeming like he had a gripe with him? Is it because he had known his dad? Like, how do you read the way that Tony reacts with Steve?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. What it is, what it comes down to, is that it's unfortunately it's daddy issues. I mean, I think it really, because probably growing up hearing those stories, not only his dad telling him, probably at the start when Tony was little, saying like, "Oh, actually, this guy that you see in these pictures, I knew him, I worked with him and stuff too." Was, oh, that's right. And then the more he had to listen to his dad tell those stories over and over again to everyone else, like, oh, geez. So now when he actually is confronted with this guy, it's just like all part of this resentment package that Tony's carrying around about Howard and everything else. So I think he sees him as also like everything he didn't like, he's seeing in him as well. So like the all the stuff from the war and that period of his life, there it is right in front of him.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes these sequences so interesting to me, is that, we have his obvious animosity towards Steve, and we have his obvious curiosity toward the Hulk. Like, he's putting himself in between two hard places, and I think it makes for that trio a really interesting mix of motivations.
It definitely does, and it really is allowing us to kind of push into like the next part of this argument here, and that is because Tony is kind of like pushing for, hey, why can't Bruce just Hulk out a little bit?
Yeah.
And then Steve is, ever the Boy Scout, trying to, protect everybody and keep everybody safe. You know damn well why. Back off. And this is where it really starts they really start pushing at each other, as Tony's like, oh, I'm starting to want you to make me. And they kind of push into this reaction about, the fact that what is Tony other than just a big man in a suit of armor? Like, he doesn't have anything except, that, of course, Tony's response, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. And then Steve's response to that, like there's just some smart writing in the way that these characters are reacting with and to each other throughout this. I like all the way that this is playing here between these two characters, and that they're building each other up. They're like really pushing each other to this point. And I mean, we just had the scene with the scepter, and so we know, we're assuming the scepter is really fueling all of this. But it's kind of like alcohol, right? It's just loosening them up, and they're just saying the things that they've been feeling since they all kind of came into contact with each other.
Exactly. And it's interesting to now that I like really doing this minute by minute, because when we came into the room, it was a crane. So we craned up from and over, and then when we were sort of wandering through seeing the thing, there was a steady cam going through all the way to reveal the thing, and then turning upside down, and now we're handheld. So we're using all sorts of different camera things to try and get the thing, because you can see it shaking a little bit, because things are getting a little more frantic, a little more out of control.
Yeah. I know I'm now officially an island on this point, and I'm really okay with it, but I prefer my read of the movie where the scepter is just present in their environment, but it is not the thing that is acting on them. And I like it that Bruce ends up holding the thing. I don't necessarily think that has to be a read that the scepter is operating him. I really like that view of it better, because I prefer the human frailty of anger.
But I think, I don't know. I like that it doesn't have to be Loki, but it can be that the Mind Stone, as I was just saying, it kind of loosens them up, and they're saying things that it's already there. It's not making them do this stuff. It's just enhancing the need for them to get these things out. Because, I mean, I don't know. The next minute, Pete, I'm going to have some points to argue with you about.
Yeah, that's why the moment I thought was in this minute, but it turns out it's in the next minute.
It's the next minute. Yeah, it's definitely going to be make me scratch my head.
I know. I watched ahead because I had to remember what I was going up against. And for crying out loud, I know. I'm just saying, like, there is something about my, like, the way I connect with this group of people in this room and this really well-written scene. And I appreciate the groundedness of not having mystical malfeasance.
Oh, yeah.
I just prefer it. I just want them to just get it all out and argue. And does it have to be driven by this thing? And I think that's one of the nice things about this sequence is that it doesn't really have to be. To your point, like all this stuff is already there. They're already pissed at each other. So it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, that's where I am on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, it could be that this is a roofie for the Hulk. Like, basically that it was basically this was set up as like just to exacerbate anger. Like, that's all it's basically doing is it's basically just poking. That's it. It's like, it's not like you're saying, I'm not saying that's mind control in terms of puppeteering. It's basically like raising the temperature in the room a couple degrees every time. And so all the stuff they're saying, I don't think any of it is, coming from like Loki puppeteering people, like putting the thing in the mind, like, oh, you should say this next. Like, I really think it is, everything they're saying is coming from them internally. They just probably wouldn't say it out loud.
Exactly.
But now all of a sudden it's sort of like Andy was saying, gloves are off. Like, all right, you're gonna swing at me, I'm gonna swing at you, and then suddenly. And now everyone's sweating.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, the movie, I think, it makes the case that they need this scene in order to have everything that comes next, right? In order to be able to find affinity with one another enough to fight and together. And I'm on board with that for sure.
Well, to a certain extent, the franchise also needed this so that we could kind of continue. Well, one, let's just say you get more interesting characters when they don't always agree with each other, as we've already discussed.
Yep.
But at the same time, I'm assuming, planning ahead, thinking, we may be doing the Civil War story eventually. We want to kind of be in this place where we're going to be able to kind of continue developing those rifts in the friendship and the ways that they view each other. And they can get along for sure, but they are also going to be having these points where they're going to be, butting heads. And I think that's what makes it very strong.
Because they have fundamentally different worldviews or, Asgardian worldviews.
Right.
I mean,
right. Yeah.
That's exactly, I think that is exactly what fuels my desire to have this grounded perspective of not seeing it as mind stone emotional lubricant.
Yeah.
Gross.
Well, I mean, I like that. There's also a nice sort of like 1-2-3 punch of big man in a suit of armor. That's that same kind of thing of just like, oh, anybody could wear that. And it's the same thing, and then what are you? And then billionaire Playboy. And then what I forgot about that is that he says that because everybody has it. There's t-shirts and everything that they immediately cut to Black Widow, to Nat. And she goes, yeah, like she basically just like goes, yeah, fair point. Like, it's just a really nice reaction.
Actually
it might have been spontaneous
too.
on her, as just Scarlett just reacting. I don't know if it was actually staged, but she just goes.
I think Andy has thoughts.
I hate that reaction.
As someone who's been really up close and personal with Tony, nothing intended there. As his personal assistant for however long, as Natalie Rushman.
Yeah.
She's right. She's seen all that stuff, and she's like, "Yep," like sort of like acknowledges it and goes, "That's true."
Yeah, it's
ticks
just,
off all four. Yep,
it's just one of those reaction shots that I'm just like, really, like I don't know. They've taken her out of the argument by this point, and that's what they give her is this little tiny reaction.
I don't think she was ever in the argument, really.
Well, she was in it earlier with Bruce. Like she and Bruce there was that contention they had.
She's been her one goal is don't call the Hulk in.
Exactly, which she's stopped doing, and now it's gone into Fury's hands. Like they've given that to Fury now, and again, she's just sitting here reacting to Tony.
Yeah, I don't feel like she's of all the people, she's the one not trying to score points here.
Well, Yeah, but that one little reaction shot of her, I feel like it doesn't do her any justice to have her react that way. I'm like, yeah, she's seen all that from Tony before, but at the same time, I'm sure she has opinions about the way that he behaves.
Oh, absolutely.
And to say, well, yeah, but you are a philanthropist. Like, I don't know. Just like, I don't know. I just feel like that is the writer coming through more than the character for me.
Well, 100% on that point, because you know where else there are a lot of those head tilts, sarcastic, oh yeah, no, I get it. The Natalie Rushman responses, any number of characters on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Right? Like, this could very well...
Firefly, so...
Well, probably that too, yeah.
Coulda, right, exactly. For me, that's Xander Harris, right? Like that is absolutely one of those characters, but could be Firefly. Hell, it could be Dollhouse, right? Like that's just stock in trade, physical responses to his particular dialogue.
Yeah.
And Steve has gone into full soldier mode at this point, as like, laying on the wire and all that kind of stuff. I do like he says, you may not be a threat, but you better stop pretending to be a hero. The only thing you fight for is yourself. Like all that stuff. I was like, oh, those are solid blows.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think when Tony responds immediately, I feel like he's had his response queued up for a long time. Like since Cap showed up, like he has it, like he's been carrying that in his pocket the whole time. Be like, oh yeah. The only thing special about you, like. That was not spontaneous, I don't think, at all. I think that's something that has, like, he's...
Yes, let me turn to page 243 in my burn book.
Yeah, I have a sealed envelope here. Let me just...
But it's also exactly what I've kind of been waiting for all this movie, right, is minute 71. It's for Steve and Tony to tell the truth about their perspectives on one another. One's power comes from inside and chemistry, and one's power comes from outside and science and engineering, and they both end up being effectively the same thing, but the way they get about it causes such strife. And I think that's fascinating. That's Banner Hulk. That's right. We need that particular conflict in order to make these characters compelling. And I think it's great. And we've been talking about that dance. This is the minute where that pays off, when they get to actually call each other out on it.
Well, and it's going to pay off further, I don't know, like 5 minutes or so moving forward, when after the attack happens and, they're about to kind of exchange blows, and then they realize, oh, I'm going to go put my suit on. Like, we finally get kind of the build to all of that. And it's like we need these moments to make all of that work as effectively as it does, because that's when they realize that they can work together, and they may have their powers coming from different things, but they can actually work together. And so it's a really fantastic conversation. Just the way that it's constructed is just so incredibly effective here.
Well, and again, pulling back the curtain on on watching this minute by minute, this entire exchange and worldview presentation and ultimate destruction and oblivion of the worldview conflict as they start working together happens over the course of like 4 minutes. Like, it's very efficient screenwriting. It's really good. It's frustratingly good, tight action dialogue. Like, really frustratingly good.
Yeah.
I know. Unfortunately, as much as I love, Marcus and McFeely, like, there's nothing like this in Avengers, Infinity War, or Endgame. There's good stuff, but nothing that has this same kind of pop and sizzle.
Yeah. Inertia.
Yeah.
This scene is building toward this, we get this conflict between the characters, and we cut out of it from there, and we go back to the Quinjet, and we see Barton readying himself in the back. The back opens up, and it's just one of these moments, like, what exactly is his plan? He is a man with a bow and arrow, and what is he going to do to take down a helicarrier?
Yeah, the note I wrote was, "Sinister Quinjet is sinister."
It's very funny. I don't know. I laugh about this moment because I'm like, okay, he's got a bow and arrow. He's walking to the back of the Quinjet. He's looking at the helicarrier.
I know. That's the thing, even from the last minute, which I sort of forgot to make the point. The fact that you have to have like, oh, now things are going to get serious. Click my bow. And it's like,
Right.
it's a cool move, sure, but it's still a bow.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
It's as sinister as, I don't remember what minute it was, but it's before they go for the ocular extraction, where he's in the underground like networking tunnel, and he pulls his bow out and shinks it into place, and you're going to Austria, and it's like, come on, man.
they're trying so hard.
I don't care how hard you jerk it in your arm. It's still a bow. You're going up against a trickster god.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of our minute as he's standing there getting ready to do something. We're not exactly sure what, but the helicarrier is below, and he's standing there with his bow in hand, ready to take it down. So we'll stop there for minute 71. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about minute 72. So Kyle, tell everybody again about what you're up to out there.
I am part of a new scary collective here on the True Story family. I'm one of the members. Do we have like a ghoul squad or something name? I don't remember.
Oh, we need a ghoul squad.
Yeah. Sitting in the Dark. It's our horror themed podcast. It is a collection of all of us and all of our differing interests in horror. We all have interest in horror, but we all have very different perspectives on what constitutes our as from classic horror to more monster movies to slasher movies, all kind of stuff. So we have a bunch of different ideas we're going to be pursuing in there. So if you are a fan of any of the type of scarier films, check out Sitting in the Dark.
Fantastic. We will have links for all these in the show notes, so check those out, everybody. Kyle will be back with you one more minute tomorrow for minute 72, but thanks for joining us today.
One last time.
We certainly appreciate it. We'll catch everybody tomorrow, minute 72. Pete, thanks as always.
I guess I have to put the suit on.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.